Hey all you studs out there, welcome in and thanks for watching this video. This is our NBA offseason guide for the San Antonio Spurs here in the 2023 NBA season. Now, the Spurs are coming off of a season in which they went 22-60, which leads to a big question in San Antonio. They've already been heading down the rebuild rabbit hole for the past couple of seasons, but do you scratch that and give it one more go at an NBA championship before Gregg Poppocich decides to hang it up and retire? Or do you continue down the rebuild and do it the right way? Now, there's some positives to both sides, but when the day comes that Gregg Poppocich decides to retire, it's going to be a sad day in NBA history due to the fact that Gregg Poppocich is one of the best coaches of all time. Popovich is a guy that typically gets the best production out of his players, no matter who they are. They could be a rookie, they could be a 18-year veteran, or somewhere in between. They could even be a bench warmer. He can still get production out of that player. But, with that being said, if they lean towards the rebuild, the Spurs could take on some large expiring contracts and continue to gain more draft capital, which is not really a concern for this team, as they already have 27 future picks, 13 firsts, and 14 seconds. And this year they have a 14% chance at number 1, as well as the number 32 or the 33rd pick in the second round. That all depends on where they land and where the Houston Rockets land, because the Rockets do have the tiebreaker over the Spurs. So with that being said, if the Spurs get the number 1 pick, they will get the number 32, or I should say the number 33 actually, because of the tiebreaker. But if you get the number 1, it's obvious that you're going to take Victor Wembanyama. And if you get Wembanyama, he is going to be the starting center on this team. Even with Gregg Poppocich telling everybody that Zach Collins would be the starting center this next season. Now, before we get to Zach Collins, this team has $40 million of cap space available, which allows them to go into free agency this year with a target of potentially picking up a big-name guy or just grabbing some guys that fit the timeline, such as Naz Reid, Max Strus, PJ Washington, KJ Martin, Austin Reeves, Darius Baisley, Grant Williams, and even Cam Reddish. These are all guys who aren't ready to be stars in the NBA yet, but they could be in the future. There's some roster flexibility with this team. There's not one star on this team. They are all guys who have potential to be great players in the NBA in the future. But there's also not a bad player on this team. You've got a young core in Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sochan, Zach Collins. Not a bad spot for the San Antonio Spurs to be in. And then you've got your own free agents, Trey Jones, Zach Collins, and those are the only two. Both of them are going to need contract extensions. But this is the guide to a good offseason for the San Antonio Spurs. Just adding to the rebuild that you have already established and hoping that Gregg Poppocich will give you at least a couple more seasons and lead you to one more NBA championship before he decides to retire. With that being said, the Spurs are looking to improve next year, are looking to have a better season, potentially getting up into the 30-win category and being a middle of the pack in the Western Conference and potentially making the play-in. That is every team's hope, but the Spurs are a team that have the better ability to do so. As I mentioned, Gregg Poppocich gets the best out of all of his players, and this is a roster that could compete with some experience under their belt. Experience that they just got this last year. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the rest of our NBA offseason guides as we prepare one for every single NBA team this season here at Phantom Sports Industries.